Hello, I'm Camilla Taylor. This past year I taught printmaking at Occidental College here in the Los Angeles area. And if there's anything that I share that might be of interest to you, here is my contact information. Feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to email you any links or what have you. And you can ask again during the Q&A section if you don't have a pen handy right now. I have two related methods through which I approached crowdsourcing teaching this past year, and I'll go through both of them. The first thing I did is a Facebook group. Here is our group, Printmaking Distance Teaching. Pretty healthy number of people in there. Soon as the pandemic started in America and there was talk of campuses shutting down, I started the group and made it focus just on printmaking and on university and college level instructors that welcome to instructors on other levels and related staff. No students, no non-teaching artists. This allows for more focused discussion and addressing the immediate issues of teaching without being distracted by people having questions to more elementary levels of what printmaking is. I'm pretty strict as an admin. The internet is so vast and there are so many places for art making and discussing studio art. So I wanted to create a place that was just this one thing, talking about printmaking instruction right now when we're all virtual. This meant keeping out any extraneous posting, no memes, no generic positivity, no sales, absolutely no self-promotion. And upon entry, I have two questions that everyone has to answer. Where do you teach? And are you interested in sharing resources with other instructors? For those who come to find a solution to an immediate problem, how do you address teaching in a way we've never taught and adapt our medium to a format completely unfamiliar to us? I want them to know that there are solutions here, but also an expectation that you'll return the favor, that you'll give back your experience and expertise to the rest of us. The majority of the resources shared are given for free, but there's also an expectation of an exchange that I give to you because you'll help me when I need it. So it's limited to only those who agree to share because I want to create systems where we support each other, where everyone has agreed to be a supportive participant. The group is private so that when participants share those resources, it's to a finite number of people, not the whole of the internet. And also so that people can feel comfortable sharing failures, what didn't work, what they're struggling with. I know that privacy on the internet is more of a veil than a wall, but it is an attempt at privacy. The vast differences in students and schools becomes pretty apparent also once we started getting our materials together in terms of budget, culture, and just the expectations of the instructor. And accessibility. I live in a major city and have a lot of art supply stores near me, but that's not true for every professor. And it's absolutely not true for every student. So in terms of getting materials to students, the solutions were just having them source them themselves and being very specific. For instance, I supplied my students with a Blick shopping list, and they were expected to just buy everything on the list or source it from somewhere else. Some professors, like Janet Balweg, provided her students with little prepackaged kits that included every item that that student might need for the semester to fulfill their assignment. I love this example. I think it's so beautiful, little labels on them. And some professors just had to adapt to whatever materials the students would have on hand because there was neither a budget from the university or from the students themselves. So we figured out how to make prints from potatoes or from makeup or from water and stencils. Just adapting to those limitations became a big hurdle, but it's been incredible to see the amount of creativity on the part of these instructors. There's also a culture of never shopping at some schools where the school provides all of the materials for the student. And so getting students to adjust to now sourcing their own materials has been a big hurdle for some professors, so thankfully not for me. But I have spoken to many where the students just don't buy stuff and it's not easy to adjust to. Once we got our materials to our students, the next thing we had to figure out is how do we replicate the press? In printmaking, we have a beautiful object called the printing press. Here is a Takash. And many of us came up with a variety of solutions to this. How do you replicate the pressure of the printing press? So a popular solution is using a spoon. Here's spoon printing as demonstrated by Hannah Schoenberg. We could expect pretty much every student to have a spoon handy. Here is caster printing by Shayla Golobratko. And this has been really popular and effective. But again, requires a student to get a binder, a caster, so some small hurdle. This is pasta machine as a tiny little printing press by Michelle Brozick. And a lot of professors were using this as a solution. And then my own solution is to use my own body weight and dance on my tiptoes over the plate and use that as the sort of press, sort of dancing printing. There's no one perfect solution because we have to adapt to the needs and capabilities of our students and the resources of our students. I started the dancing printing method because I had a student who couldn't print with their hands. They just did not have much upper body strength. But then later in the semester, I had a student break his foot and he couldn't print with his feet. And so we figured out a solution that worked for him. In the past, students with disabilities may have had physical assistance from a classmate or a professor because we could all be in the same place with each other. But now that we're not in each other's presence, we've had to adapt printing to everyone's abilities. There's no one perfect solution to home printing. And I hope that this approach is something that we can return to the classroom with when we're meeting in person, that we adapt the medium to the person instead of trying to figure out a way that the medium doesn't change. We need all of these solutions and more because the students are all going to be very different, just as the professors are so different. Printmaking is a very communal art form, and I think because of the necessity for that large equipment that we all use and share, so it's often this shared space. And when we work alongside each other, it builds a sense of community and just a culture of sharing. And I think that that attitude has transitioned really easily to teaching virtually. This attitude that I have an idea, I have a process, I'm just going to share it with you because that's what we would normally do. So in addition to the Facebook group, I also started these crowdsourced spreadsheets. Initially because I switched my own research paper assignment to an artist interview and research assignment because I just wanted to encourage more communication and less isolation. And it started this effort to contact and gather information of artists for everyone to use. So here's the spreadsheet, not as visually interesting as the printing, but still can be useful to many of you. What I found interesting about this was how much information people wanted to provide that I had not initially asked for, like their employment status, their specialization. So I tried to adapt to that as I realized, well, some students may want to interview someone teaching at a school where they may apply to grad school or potentially transfer to. This spreadsheet for guest artists was also very popular and useful to me personally. And this is an approach that I really think will continue using past the pandemic. It opens up the diversity of artists able to visit and share their work and lowers the hurdle of what visiting means. I think there's a lot of benefit to doing it in person. There's not always a budget for that or the capability. And this opens up the diversity of artists able to visit and share because it goes beyond the immediate geographic vicinity of the school and also the immediate social circle of the professor. This spreadsheet on critique strategies has had far fewer contributions, but I think that's just because there's a bit of a barrier. It requires a lot more work on the part of the contributors. And I don't know that there's that many more solutions to critiques online out there that aren't just versions of the same one we've already shared. To all of this, there's a barrier of tech literacy and with teaching online in general. I've been asked by artists if I'll add their information to these spreadsheets myself because they can't figure out how to use the spreadsheet, and I refuse because my approach is that the participant needs to be able to remove themselves when the time comes that they don't have the time or the willingness to continue to be on it. And also because I set a certain amount of labor that I am willing to and happy to do. And I don't really want to go beyond that. I want to stick to this sense of this is what I'm willing to do. And if you need more, you need to ask someone else because I have reached the limit of what I will happily do. And I hope that this attitude prevents the sort of expectation that everyone just works for free. As artists, there's often an expectation that everything we give, we just give for free without any remuneration. And I don't want to only encourage that. I want to encourage sharing, not just giving. So, quick summary. Claudia and McCain and I were talking about how this feels similar to when we had a cohort in grad school, the sense of community and support we have, but also this sense of accountability that we see each other and we give each other both support, but also criticism. And also an expectation on each other's part that there's flexibility that perhaps did not exist with every professor and every mode of teaching. And I really hope that that attitude is what we're able to carry forward, the sense of community, that support, but also that criticism and accountability that we have for each other. Thank you so much. And I look forward to any questions.